What's up, Flip Factor family? This is Michael Green with the Flip Factor podcast, the #1 podcast dedicated to teaching you how to find high profit deals and manage your flips so you can make more money. Got a great guest, Delante Desouza, here today. He is my contractor, Let's Crush the Contractor partner, because we're on this whole mission for the last couple months of how to do this deep dive into being better at contracting, saving money, having less stressful environment with them, and really just getting our flips done on time so that we can make more money and have more consistency with a lot less stress. So today I'm going to talk to you and share with you the critical paperwork that you need to really have every one of your contractors sign when you work with them. Really important. Delante, welcome, man.
Thanks for having me again on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Me and Delante, before we jumped on, we were talking about the paperwork, and we were like, a lot of people think well, I have a contract with them. And I was like, well, can you imagine you giving all this money to a contractor and then you're just sitting there, but I have paperwork. What do you mean you're not calling me back and you're ripping me off? I have paperwork. We're going to get in and tell you why the paperwork is really important to have, but will not protect you. So it's awesome to have. You need to have it. We're not saying anything bad about the paperwork. We're only saying that don't think because you have paperwork, you can go give a bunch of money to a contractor because he has the money and you have a piece of paper. It's very difficult to get your money back when your piece of paper. You have to sue them. You got to hope they still have it. There's a good chance they don't if they're running off with your money. There's a good chance they might just skip the country for all we know. And they probably, if they ripped you off, they probably ripped many others off. So you could be in a situation where you're in a long line of people who are saying, hey, that guy owes me money. So we do the paperwork, and we're going to explain the 3 most critical pieces of paperwork that you need and why and how to use them, and and what they are and how you'll use them as a benefit, but also we'll explain what they're not. Does that make sense, Delante? We just said they're not a reason to give a bunch of money to your contractor because he will have a lot of fun on that.
Yes. They will also not protect you in a fist fight with your contractor. So
it will not. Hold on. I have a piece of paper. What do you mean? Why are you punching me in the face? This paper says you can't punch me in the face. That's like saying, I will call the police. Well, you better call him before he goes flips out on you. So yeah, we want to kind of stop things before they happen, right? We always believe in being proactive versus reactive, because if you're reacting with contractors, it's stressful, but also you're probably losing money and not doing so great. And we've learned that the hard way over the years. Not really Delante. We were talking about this earlier. He hasn't really had to struggle too much. He's kind of like that kid that grew up with money. He didn't actually grow up with money, but he kind of got into house flipping, and he worked with me from day one, and we were great friends, and he spent every hour of the day with me just watching the business. So he really never did too much wrong. He had a couple little interactions where he's like, Mike, these guys are a little bit wild, but his money wasn't in their hands, so it was easy to handle, right? Because you didn't give him a bunch of money. At the end of the day, he's like, well, how do I handle it? I'm like, well, we got their money. We got, we owe them the money, so let them do what we're going to say we want them to do, or we just don't pay them. It was a big, powerful position to be in, wasn't it? And then eventually they calmed down and they did exactly what they're supposed to do. But only because we held the big stick of money, right? Hey, and we're always super nice about it. We never try to rip anyone off. We don't want to be dishonest. We always want to make sure that, hopefully they leave. But sometimes contractors get a little unreasonable. And when they do, it's going to be a matter of who has the money, which trumps all paperwork, by the way. So 3 critical documents. Let's quickly talk about them, and then we'll talk about what they are, what they aren't. The #1 document that I make sure I sign with every contractor is called a W-9. And the W-9 is just a tax document that says that, whatever money you pay them, you can send them a 1099 at the end of the year, which basically just says you paid them that money, so you don't have to pay taxes on it. And, the money you pay them is a deduction, so they can pay their own taxes on that. Now, that's a super quick, easy. Every state you're in, you can usually go right to a government site and just pull it off. It's free, it's easy, it's cheap. Make sure before you give them money, you get them to sign it. It is really difficult to get them to sign it after you pay them. Unless they're continuing to work with you. And then sometimes they'll sign it to continue the relationship. But if that's the only job you're going to do, well, guess what? They're probably not going to sign it, and then you're going to be stuck with it. Now, if you pay them under $600, $599 or under, then you don't need a 1099 or a W-9. But as soon as you've paid them over $600 and you want to claim that, you're going to need a W-9 for them. Get the W-9. It's pretty simple, pretty easy. We also get them to sign what's called 2 things. They either give us a workman's comp or they sign a workman's comp waiver. Most people don't know if it's an individual. It's one guy working, doing some trim or something. He can actually waive his own workman's comp in just about every state. And that's just the freedom of being being, you don't have to have workman's comp on yourself. Now he does need workman's comp on his people, and he can't wait for his people, but he can wait for himself. So making sure we have workman's comp, or we have a waiver, we have some protection against them getting injured and not coming back and suing us. And the third thing, and this is probably what we should start with, would be a work contract. Whenever we have a new relationship, we do a work contract with them. Now that work contract, the purpose of it is to spell out exactly what we're going to do with them, how much we're going to pay them, and more importantly, if they don't do the work they promised, what, how we handle that. Like, what is there, if we have to fire you or you don't do what you promised, like, how do we handle that? I like to get very descriptive about it because, as they're reading that 1-page simple contract, it'll be like, well, what do you mean you're not, like, if I don't do the work right, you're not going to pay me? Like, yeah, I'm not going to pay you until the work's done correctly. Either you do it or I have to hire someone to do it, but I'm not going to give you money for incomplete work or work that's been done crap. And someone who's really good will never worry about that. Because, see, they have confidence. They know, well, my work's always good. So they're not even worried. Now, people who have a long track record of ripping people off, doing crappy work, they're going to be like, oh, I don't know about this. I'm not signing that. See, they're going to be afraid of that because they're going to be worried about it. Also, what you find is people who are pretty on the up and up couldn't care less if they sign a 1-page simple contract. But people who aren't on the up and up, they tend to be very fearful of anything that kind of ties them into like doing what they've said, right? They don't want to be held accountable, right? Nobody who does, right? They want to be able to come back and say, Delante, you told me this. And you're like, I don't remember telling you that. I don't ever tell anyone that. I always love when they tell me that I tell them something that is part of, I have like a clear system that I never do. You told me you'd give me the money up front. I'm like, well, no, I didn't tell you that because I never give the money up front. I got like 19 podcasts that talks about not giving the money up front to prove that I probably wouldn't have told you that. So it's kind of cool when we have paperwork to back us up. What I like even more, and I don't know if it's legal, you certainly would have to talk to your attorney, and I'm not giving you any legal advice on any of this stuff. I'm just telling you what we do and how we do it. Certainly for your business, go and ask your attorney and really, strategize with them to make sure this is all legal in your state. It's, gives enough protection for you, but I don't mind sharing what I'm doing and how it works for me. Maybe you can use it if you want. It's totally up to you. But one of the things I really like doing now too is video recording. So I find it, because I don't like to write and I don't like putting stuff together, I like just video recording the walkthrough and the discussion and talking about price. And then I can just put it right on YouTube for free, and I can give them that video later so they can just watch what we agreed upon and they can just follow the instructions on it. And in some level, it would definitely be a very conclusive contract, I would believe. Again, I'm not an attorney, but just so I can backtrack a little bit, we're never looking to take people to court. Paperwork, like I said, it's not going to be like you'll just, trying to go to court and get money from someone who ripped you off. Never going to happen. So the paperwork is more to clarify our agreement. Right. It's really like a contract that, makes everyone get clear on the same page. I would say that's its biggest value. If I've ever had to take someone to court, often the cost of hiring an attorney, taking them to court is much greater than what they got me for. I don't use the contract to go try to sue someone. I can't even give you an example of anyone I've ever sued or had to sue. It's usually the paperwork will just weed out the people who need to be sued and just help us get clear when we get into disagreements. And a video could do that same thing. So no, if you're not using it as a legal document, but you're more using it for just clarity, right? Like upfront, clear communication. So they're the three things. What they aren't is none of these things are the holy grail, especially we'll say the third thing, the contract. It isn't a tool that you can guarantee or get rid of risk with. See, people use a contract and you think, well, I have a contract. Like, okay, what if they just say, F you, I'm not honoring the contract? What do you do?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, right? I think so many people and so many investors think that, these paper contracts are like these ironclad shields that protect them, like, from contractors, not being upfront and honest. And that's not the case. You know what I mean? A contract, like we said, it's literally just some paper with some ink on it. So like, what can it do? You know what I mean? When we talk about bringing this stuff into like the court of law and things like that, that's just a whole nother slew of things. Yeah. If the contractor's ripping you off, he probably ripped someone else off. Yeah, good luck on getting the money.
He ain't got no money, I promise you. I've seen a few times where I've had some students that have won and got judgments against contractors, and I can't tell you a story yet to them to get the money. Now, I told them they likely would never get the money, and they were like, yeah, principal, I just want to put a judgment against them so I didn't do this to anyone else. And that was up to them. That was a business decision for them. And, and I've done that a few times in my life, where I've just been like in a situation, like a legal situation, often principal comes in, and principal is generally never the best business way to do business. Sometimes just looking at overall cost. What is my cost? What is it? At the end of the day, I feel like often it's worth moving on. Since I know that I lean towards moving on and not being real litigious and suing people people and wanting to be in that distraction. I just want to be more high level and positive. I found that it's really important that I upfront do the right thing so I don't find myself in a situation on the back end where I got to sue someone and I know I'm going to lean towards not doing it because I don't really like the fight with people and waste money on attorneys, maybe or maybe not get money. So what I do is upfront, I'm really good about not giving the money to them and putting myself in a situation. Because I've had a lot of people say, Mike, what do I do in this really bad situation? And to be honest, there's only maybe okay at best ways of getting out of a bad situation, but the things you can do to prevent those situations, those are easy, right? Those are the ones that aren't hard, but they do take a little bit of discipline. Right. So everything's about being proactive, not reactive, making sure you don't get into a situation. This is what I love using a contract for. Same thing at the end of the year, you've paid somebody $40,000. You're like, hey, man, I need you to sign this W-9. Phone's like, beep. This phone has been disconnected. You're like, what? Like, how am I going to deal with this $40,000? So yeah, I think getting them to sign the W-9 up front is pretty cool. And it's way proactive versus I've had some people who just mysteriously disappeared when I was like, hey, I got W-9 for you. And I was like, oh man, I should have got them to sign it sooner. And so you don't want to be in that spot, if that makes sense. Same thing with like the workman's comp and all that, making sure you have insurances and things.
So what do you do if you are in that spot though? Like, what do you do if a contractor does like refuse or stalls on like completing some paperwork that you need them to get done? I mean,
if you have no leverage on them, you beg and, plead and you like, hey dude, I got this really awesome job coming up for you where I'm going to pay you double. And you start like making stories up and you just do whatever you can to get them to sign the paperwork. I know that sounds crazy, but you're in an awful spot, right? You might be calling up like, come on, man, please. I don't like to beg and grovel, but you know what? I don't want to take $40K of someone's like pay either and have to deal with the taxes on that. So I just prefer not to be in that spot. But if you did get into that spot, there's some things you can do, but they're really not for me to say because it would be something you would start strategizing with your tax guy, maybe your attorney. There's some things you can do to, kind of work that out it wouldn't be risk-free, but, it probably would be better than paying taxes on $40K of somebody's income. But, again, that isn't really my spot. When I have been in that spot before, and what I did is I went back to my power team of, my CPA and my attorney and just figured out some strategies to make it work. We worked it out. It wasn't perfect, but, it was the best of the worst, right? It was the best we could do.
In essence, and the summary to all of this is, make sure you get the paperwork done before you pay them the money, because the money is the ultimate leverage.
Yeah, cash is king.
But the contract is not going to protect you in a fight with your contractor, so just be aware.
Unless you know how to like slice, give people paper cuts, you like use like a throwing star or something. That's the only thing I can think of. I've seen a ninja show where I think Jackie Chan fought off like 3 villains with a piece of paper. So, if you got those skills, you'll be good, but nice. You're not going to probably convince him to do anything because when you're like, I got a contract and he's going to be like, so they just don't care. Honestly, they really don't. I've tried that a few times and it was staggeringly ineffective. They were just like, yeah, so what? Good luck, buddy. Had a look on them, like almost like they were giggling inside when I said it. Like no respect at all. Yeah. So sign the paperwork, but know what its purpose is, know what it is, know what it isn't, and know the best way to use it. So pretty powerful stuff. Thank you, Delante. Really big things. We're doing a really cool training right now called Cracking the Contractor Code. We have an online training you can do for free if you want to jump onto the flipfactor.net. We have a little link there. You can jump in. Anyone who's listening to the podcast, it's some really good content, a much deeper dive into what we just talked about, the overall philosophy of how we're getting contractors in at very affordable, standardized price, getting them to finish quick, on time, on budget, without a lot of stress. And if you want to do that in your business, then jump on there and check it out. Also, if you like what we're talking about and you want to just listen to more of these podcasts because you're enjoying them, we have more on construction. We really have a sequence going. We're going to be doing a bunch of new episodes, really dropping a lot of tips, pulling them straight out of the program, right out of our mastermind that people pay money to be in. So you're getting some really good value, and we enjoy sharing it with you guys. And we appreciate you listening to the show. We know you have a lot of options. So thank you for coming and spending time. Flip Factor family, we love you guys. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Everyone have a great day. I'm Michael Green. My work's done. Yours has just begun. Stay awesome, everyone.